SMS, Dr. Amy Khor. Can you let us know which questions are you taking until?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, with your permission, may I take questions 9 to 19, please?
9 to 19, yes.
Thank you. Let me first thank members for your questions and concerns for our hawker centres. In fact, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the public for the many views and discussions and suggestions that they have put forward. We appreciate such views and feedback to help us to improve, to better serve our hawker centres and Singaporeans. I will speak on our efforts to better support our hawkers and look after their well-being. As a regulator, NEA must strike a balance between serving the public well and ensuring the well-being of hawkers while working to achieve the social objectives of our hawker centres. Residents should have access to affordable food in a clean setting for all 3 meals. At the same time, hawkers must be able to make a decent living under fair tenancy terms and conditions. As with any trial, it is difficult to get the socially conscious enterprise hawker centre or SEHC model right from the start, especially since we have not built new hawker centres for almost 30 years. So we set some key parameters. Let the market work, and when we get feedback or issues are raised, we will move to address them swiftly and decisively, as we have done in the past month or so. We are not done with the stock take of the model and will continue to refine it to better serve Singaporeans. I will outline 3 areas of improvements which we have made and will continue to focus on. First, we will better support stallholders to manage costs. My ministry, together with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, conducted a study on the drivers of hawker centre food prices in 2014. We found that the cost of raw materials and manpower made up the bulk of the hawkers' costs at 76%, and not stall rentals, which only comprise 12%. It is also shown through studies by the Institute of Policy Studies, or IPS, that hawkers generally price food according to what the market can bear. This is influenced by competition in the vicinity and the demographic profile of customers. Hence, rentals do not directly affect food prices. Nonetheless, for both our existing hawker centres and our new SEHCs, or new centres, we have put in place measures to ensure that rentals are fair and not speculative. For existing centres, we have removed the reserve rent and disallowed subletting and assignment. For new centres, we have in our tender evaluation favoured tenderers who offer lower total rental and operating costs and prohibit any increases in rental or operating costs for the duration of the tenancy, as one of our priorities is to safeguard the interests of our hawkers. The median rental of stalls in SEHCs is about $2,000 per month, not $4,000 per month, as some media reports have claimed. The median rentals of stalls in comparable existing hawker centres is $1,700 per month, which is comparable to those of the new centres, after accounting for the larger stall size, better designed stalls and amenities at the new centres, and in some cases, the co-location of the new centres with residential properties as well as other amenities. Stall sizes at our new centres of between 10 to 21 square meters are much larger than existing centres, which are between 5 to 13 square meters. Additionally, the actual stall rentals at our new centres range from $750 to $3,700 a month. This is in line with rentals of non-subsidized stalls at our comparable existing centres, which range from $640 to $3,900 a month. Our hawker centre rentals, specifically those at SEHCs, are not linked to the rentals of surrounding coffee shops and food courts. In fact, they are nowhere near the rentals at these private F&B outlets, which can range from $4,000 to $13,000 a month before other operating costs. We will continue to monitor and ensure that store rentals in our new centres are reasonable to enable hawkers to make a decent living. As for existing hawker centres, no stallholders are paying astronomical rentals. The recent $10,000 bid was an outlier, and the bidder did not even commence operations. Besides rentals, the operating costs at SEHCs and existing centres are comparable too. For example, Service and Conservancy charges, or S&CC, at the new centres are between $110 to $350 a month, within the range of $130 to $450 a month at our existing centres. Similarly, table cleaning fees at the SEHCs are between $300 to $550 a month, again within the range of $200 to $830 a month at our existing centres. Operating costs payable by hawkers at existing centres also frequently do not take into account the cost for dishwashing. At the majority of our existing centres, without centralised dishwashing, or CDW, stallholders may have to hire dishwashers, which could cost up to $1,500 a month, which is much higher than the average CDW charges. Moreover, these hawkers often have difficulties hiring and retaining such hawker assistants, as my minister had said earlier too. Nonetheless, to further help the SEHC stallholders manage costs, we announced last week that we will extend the productive hawker centre grants to these hawkers for 2 years, effective from 1st January next year. With the grant extension, stallholders at our new centres will enjoy 50% reduction in their CDW costs for the first year and 30% for the second year. Currently, these grants are only available to hawkers at our existing centres under the PHC format. However, after a few years of operations with the new centres, we recognise that hawkers at the new centres may also need some support in transition, as they need time to build up their clientele. These productivity solutions, such as CDW and Automated Tray Return Systems, or ATRS, are necessary to alleviate our tight manpower situation and help hawkers solve problems like staff shortage. The average tray return rates of our SEHCs are far higher, at about 50%, than those at our existing hawker centres, which are at about 25%. But we can do better. First and foremost, patrons should form the habit of returning their tray with the crockery after eating. A high tray return rate will directly benefit both patrons as well as hawkers, as it will lead to faster turnover of tables, keep the birds away, and lead to a cleaner environment that helps attract patrons. It will also ease the workload of our cleaners, so that the cleaning companies do not have to keep increasing the number of cleaners, which will eventually lead to higher cleaning costs for the hawkers. And even if they want to increase the number of cleaners, they consistently face manpower shortage and issues with hiring. Greater public education and close partnership between operators, hawkers and patrons are key. Everyone must play their part towards ensuring a clean environment in our hawker centres to benefit both patrons and hawkers. In fact, most hawkers have welcomed the productivity initiatives implemented at our new hawker centres. To Sui Han, a 39-year-old hawker operating at the Man Ching Siang Curry Rice stall at our Tampines Hub, or OTH, hawker centre, said that he was satisfied with CDW as it helped him to reduce his cleaning costs significantly. He highlighted that CDW fees at OTH added up to only $700 before the productivity subsidy, while it will cost him about $3,000 to hire 2 assistants to cover the same load. CDW also saves stallholders from paying additional water charges or managing an inventory of crockery and cutlery that has to be replaced due to wear and tear or loss. Hygiene is better as they do not have to carry out dishwashing within the stall area. We hope that this will alleviate the workload of our hawkers, especially the older hawkers, and make the trade more attractive to our younger hawkers by reducing menial work. Following a call for collaboration, CFC, led by Enterprise Singapore, ESG, on behalf of NEA, HDB and JTC, NEA is partnering NETS to provide interoperable e-payment solutions to our hawkers. Stallholders in SEHCs can take up the CFC e-payment solution for 3 years without paying transaction costs or terminal rental. This will provide an additional option to SEHC operators to encourage stallholders to opt for e-payment. The above subsidies will help to reduce the operating costs of our hawkers at the new centres in their initial years. This will support them as they build up their customer base. There may be some other fees from value-added services that the SEHC operators provide, such as coin-changing services, but these are optional. Second, NEA will rebalance the soft-touch regulatory approach towards SEHC operators and exercise greater oversight to safeguard hawkers' well-being. NEA has reviewed some of the key contractual terms between the SEHC operators and stallholders. Some of the terms were replicated from contracts the operators use in the other food establishments that they run. In practice, operators have actually exercised flexibility with these terms. NEA has taken in the feedback of hawkers and worked with the operators to make 4 key changes as immediate priority. Operators will be more flexible on stallholders' operating hours. Stallholders will not be required to work more than 5 days a week or 8 hours a day, although they could if they wish to. Operators will also engage stallholders who intend to open more than 8 hours a day on how they intend to do so and whether they would have sufficient manpower, for example, through engaging stall assistants or joint operators. As asked by a member, operators can also decide if it is feasible to install food vending machines to meet meal requirements beyond operating hours, especially for small meals or snacks. Operators will not require a notice period of more than 2 months for stallholders to terminate their tenancies or require security deposits exceeding 2 months' rental. This will address the concerns of some stallholders being locked into their tenancies. Operators who impose liquidated damages on stallholders for regulatory or other breaches will limit these payments to no more than $50 per day for minor ones and $100 per day for major breaches. They will also bear all legal fees related to the tenancy. NEA will continue to engage both hawkers and operators to address concerns in other areas. For instance, at OTH, the community had initially asked for a 24-hour hawker centre. But as the demand from patrons has not materialized, both hawkers and the operator will recalibrate the arrangement. With the changes made to operating hours, the hawkers who do not wish to continue with the 24-hour operations, which they had previously signed up for, can do so now. NEA will also ask operators to communicate stall tenancy agreement terms in simple language to ensure that potential stallholders can understand them clearly before they commit to run the hawker stalls. In our contractual review, we found that the operators indeed have shown flexibility. For example, we have not observed any operators charging stall rentals for the remaining of their tenancy terms in the case of premature termination. The operators have also agreed to make changes to the terms I've just described and to waive any legal fees for new tenancy contracts and renewals. Whilst there is a need to rebalance our soft-touch regulatory approach towards our SEHC operators, we recognize, as I've said, that they have shown flexibility through the contract review process and are making changes to some of their terms and practices. They have also shown innovation and creativity in implementing measures to drive footfall to the centres. These include family carnivals and loyalty programs, which offer discounts and other promotions to build up a pool of repeat patrons. In fact, many of these operators have been bearing the costs of various initiatives to improve footfall at the centres, such as free shuttle bus services and free parking, not long after the centres began operations. They are required under the terms of our tender to plough back at least 50% of any operating surplus for the social benefits of hawker centres. This, plus our tender process, which favours operators who charge lower total rental and operating costs, and our prohibition on SEHC operators to increase any rental or operating costs over the tenancy period, limits the extent of any operating surplus. These safeguards are part of our efforts to manage and reduce the risk of profiteering. We stand ready to act decisively should there be any mismanagement by the SEHC operators. Potential measures include imposing liquidated damages or even termination of their contracts. As part of our ongoing stocktake, NEA will look at the selection criteria for operators, what to leave to market forces, and whether any other safeguards should be prescribed. Third, all SEHC operators have set up structured feedback channels for their hawkers and have had at least one meeting. They will continue to engage their hawkers regularly and address concerns together and quickly. NEA officers will be present at these meetings. I'm hopeful that such structured and regular meetings will help encourage communication, resolve day-to-day issues, and also reduce misunderstandings. I attended one of these meetings at Ci Yuan Hawker Centre. The atmosphere was constructive and stallholders had positive experiences to share. For example, Chan Li Ching, a 29-year-old hawker who has been operating the Teochew Satay Bihun stall since 2015, said that with the hawkers feedback group, operators could proactively seek hawkers' views on various matters relating to the hawker centre and stalls, and also work together on ideas to help the centre do better. I had a fruitful dialogue recently with HC 3.0 committee members, hawkers, and food advocates passionate about preserving our hawkers culture. The participants contributed many ideas, and we have agreed to set up a ground-up work group comprising hawkers and other experts to look at how to support new entrants to the hawker trade and sustain our hawker culture. And we shall share details when ready. Many of the new centres are doing well. When I visited Kampong Admiralty Hawker Centre recently, the place was crowded and many patrons shared with me that they were happy with the wide selection of hawker food at affordable prices. One patron even told me about the $2.60 mee siam sold by the House 22. Similarly, I met a group of ladies who frequent the OTH Hawker Centre. They excitedly told me how happy they were with the many tasty hawker fare offered there, such as laksha by Social Bite and chicken rice at OTH. In fact, the father of Mr. Kiang, who runs chicken rice at OTH, was among the pioneer batch of chefs who developed the famous chatterbox chicken rice at Mandarin Hotel. So I share with you a little secret, which means that the next time I go will be a longer queue. But for those centres which are not doing so well, we are working with the operators and stallholders to increase footfall, improve business, and serve their patrons better. What they need now is our support, not speculation and negative publicity that will keep patrons away and cause stallholders more hardship. The latest efforts to discuss and resolve issues through regular dialogue is the right way to go. In summary, we will continue to make adjustments and recalibrate the SEHC model to ensure that it continues to achieve the key social outcomes of our hawker centres, which are to provide affordable food in a clean environment, allow our hawkers to make a decent living, and build communities. We will seek and listen to feedback from hawkers and patrons and continue with our stocktake to further improve the model. Next year, we are nominating hawker culture for inscription on the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. It is a community-based effort involving many stakeholders, including our hawkers, to sustain the hawker trade. The UNESCO nomination will be an important recognition of our hawkers, as we let the world know about our local food and multicultural heritage. As of 18 November, we have received 133,000 pledges online. I urge members and all Singaporeans who have yet to pledge to do so on our SG Heritage website. I'm heartened by the passionate discussions and support for hawker food and our hawkers. To sustain the hawker trade and preserve our hawker culture, I urge everyone to patronize our hawker stalls and support them. I wonder if all members in this House have visited our new hawker centres. If you have not, I urge you to show your support by visiting and patronizing them with your families and friends. Let me share that there are many interesting and tasty hawker fare at these centres, so a few more secrets, including some of my favorites, such as delicious Min Chiang Kueh by Manchi at Yishun Park Hawker Centre, Chendol from the dessert stall at Ci Yuan Hawker Centre, run by a young hawkerpreneur, and Zi Cha from Jian Fa Barbecue Seafood at OTH Hawker Centre, just to name a few. Parents should bring their children to our hawker centres to appreciate our hawker culture and heritage food. Our hawker centres should not be treated as nice-to-have dining options, but an important part of our living and evolving culture, as after all, we started building new hawker centres again because of the many appeals from the community for the hawker centres. I'm confident that our hawker centres will continue to thrive as community dining rooms, bringing together Singaporeans from all walks of life and strengthening our bonds as a country.
Ms. Cheryl Chan.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I would like to thank Minister and SMS for the very elaborate response. I think many Singaporeans like myself really enjoy all the hawker food, and we're supportive of the idea, including the need to try new models, for what's relevant for time. But for the fact that because the term is called social enterprise, I think it needs to clearly demonstrate that there is this elements of social benefits, whether it's for the hawkers themselves or even for the consumers. I've got two clarifications that I would like to ask SMS or Minister. The first is, for the grants that's given for example, on the productivity initiatives, do these operators actually, are they mandated to pass through all these benefits to the hawkers? Or are the hawkers paying extras for, the e-payment system, the trade return system, etc.? And the second one is, SMS mentioned about the need for 50% of the surplus to be translated back to social benefits. Can you elaborate more? What are these form of social benefits?
SMS.
Sorry. For the productivity, productive hawker centre grant of 50% and 30% for first and second year, this will directly benefit the hawkers because that 50% of the cost of the centralised dishwashing will be deducted from the payment they have to make for the CDW. So it will be a direct benefit to the hawkers. Regarding the sharing of any operating surplus, it is in the terms of the tender agreement with the operator. Firstly, that they have to set up, if they are not a social enterprise, they will have to set up a separate entity to tender for the hawker centre because we require them to submit an annual set of audited accounts to us. And if there are any operating surplus, the condition is that they have to plow back at least 50% of this operating surplus back to benefit the hawker center, the hawkers, or the community. And some of the proposals that have been made by the successful tenderers are like, for instance, providing meal vouchers for needy residents or the elderly within the community, or sharing some of this operating surplus with the hawkers in terms of providing discounted meal vouchers or one-for-one meal vouchers, for instance, that Yishun Timber Plus does, to give to the residents so that they can purchase, and part of the meal it will be funded from the operating surplus. So there are various programs, or it could be the training of hawkers or helping low income, for instance, to set up a hawker stall there. So there are a number of variations. But if there is operating surplus, they will have to propose how they want to plow back these benefits into, back to the community or hawker center, and it will be subject to NEA's approval.
Engineer Dr. Lee Biwa.
Thank you, sir. I would like to applaud NEA for resuming building of hawker centers. It's a welcome move. And in fact, I was one of those who lobby very hard to have hawker center in Yishun. But many of us would like to see the hawker center that are run by NEA that provides good and cheap food. I have 3 supplementary questions. I know that just now Minister and SMS has explained the social enterprise hawker center, but a lot of residents are asking, what is the definition of social enterprise? We don't see VWO who come in, but we see those social enterprise that is set up by big companies. So what is their motivation? Second question, does this translate to lower cooked food price? Is there any study done? And how to ensure that economic meals that is available at the hawker center, it is available all the time? Because residents had told me that they were very often told that, "Mai wan la." If you want to buy the economy one, mai wan la. So I would like to know whether is there any checking. And the third question is that, what I understood is that hawkers are managed by this social enterprise hawker center company, and then NEA staff oversee the social enterprise company. What my residents have been asking is that, why can't we take away all these layers? Why can't NEA themselves run the hawker center, build up your own internal capability? And this is something that we hope to see. In fact, many residents hope to see. They would like to see the old type of the hawker center that you can see a lot of good food at a cheap price, rather than you give me hawker center that's very beautiful, but then most of the time the food is more expensive than coffee shop. And last but not least, I think Minister did not answer my PQ number 4 on incubation store program. I think there is such program. I would like to know how many have been under this program, and whether they continue beyond the incubation period, and if they don't continue, what are the reasons? Thank you.
For those asking supplementary question, can you direct the minister, your question to a specific minister? SMS Khor, are you answering?
Yeah, I would like to answer even the last question on behalf of Minister, because actually Minister is really very sick. He caught a bad flu, so let me just answer the various questions.
Thank you, SMS.
Member has raised 5 questions in total, I think. Yeah. Well, firstly, about the motivation of SEHCs. I think that, first of all, maybe this social enterprise hawker center that the media has been using is a bit of a misnomer. We actually started by saying socially conscious operators. So what we are saying that, operators who know that if they tender for these hawker centers and run it, there must be a social mission. So social enterprise could be one of the operators, interested party to tender for the hawker centres, but not necessarily must be social enterprise. So what we have done really is within the tender conditions to ensure that there is a social mission. And as I've said earlier, and Minister has also said, there are various safeguards that we have put in place in the tender conditions to ensure that we meet the social objectives of the hawker centres that we started building again in the first place. And that is ensure that we have affordable food options of a good variety in a clean environment, ensure that our hawkers can make a decent living, and of course preserve our hawker culture and ensure the vibrancy of the hawker centre. And I think we have said a number of times what these are. For instance, that we favour operators who actually offer lower rentals and total operating costs. They cannot raise these rentals and operating costs through the term of the tenancy agreement. As I've said, there is also a requirement to plough back any operating surplus for social objectives, social benefits to the hawker centres, the hawkers and the community. So a good example, of course, of a socially conscious operator would be NFC, which is part of NTUC and is a cooperative. In selecting SEHCs, we also look out on how we can harness their experience, which is actually the recommendation from the Hawker Centre panel, Hawker Centre Public Consultation Panel, that we try and leverage on the experience of these operators in F&B and in lease management in order to be able to put in place various initiatives and various ideas to ensure and enhance the vibrancy of the hawker centres. In relation to that, you have a question about why not NEA continue to run hawker centres. I think Minister have actually elaborated in detail as to some of the reasons why we need to look at a new management model for our new hawker centres. And the reasons are really because there are inherent challenges in the hawker trade. Aging profile of our hawkers. The existing hawkers' age profile is 60 years old, which means that within 10 years' time, 1/3 would have retired if we do not attract new hawkers into the trade. Right? So it's renewal, aging, manpower constraints, as well as, of course, the evolving needs and tastes of patrons. How do you ensure that what you offer meet the needs and demands of patrons? And also actually in existing hawker centres, as Minister has also elaborated, if you look at this, our existing hawkers have been around for years. They are really established. Many of them have anchor hawkers who are able to pull in the crowd. But on the other hand, you would also note that many existing hawker centres, when you go, sometimes you're not sure whether the stall is open. 35%, only 35% of our hawkers in existing hawker centres open for 3 meals. Most of them 1 or 2 meals. Some only work 3 to 4 days. So does this then meet the needs of our community, especially the newer communities where there are many dual income families and they need to access food through the day and through the week, at least for 3 meals. So these are some of the challenges, and therefore we look at how we can actually try out, pilot a new management model in order to overcome these challenges and to meet our social objectives. And indeed, SEHC has actually resulted in positive outcomes, albeit, of course, there are teething issues, and we are committed to looking at how we can recalibrate, make adjustments, and improve the model, even as we look to implementing it for our new SEHCs, our new hawker centres. Economy meals. How come it's not available? Well, it depends on at which point in time of the day you went. But basically, majority of our SEHCs, majority of the stalls do offer at least one affordable option. But let me say that we only asked that they offer at least one affordable option, and we're not asking them to artificially suppress the prices of all their food options. In fact, they can sell all the other food options at varying price points. And that really is the concept of a community dining room, that people from all walks of life can come together, share a table, and enjoy a meal at different price points. Yeah? And that will ensure that they'll be able to make a decent livelihood. Whichever hawker center doesn't have enough of those economy meals, we can talk about it and we can talk to the operators, right? But basically, I've been to many of them and they do offer affordable options, and they are good options. Incubation store. We have launched an incubation store program just about over a year, last year. So when we started, we identified 13 stalls that we pre-fitted out. And then we offer it to aspiring new hawkers who are not sure whether, they're interested to join the trade, they're passionate, but they're not sure if they can make it. So we offer it to them, subject to certain conditions, of course. They can rent these pre-fitted out stalls for 6 months at 50% of the assessed market rent. And that is to allow them to try out. It's pre-fitted, so we reduce the initial capital cost. So far, we have received some 40 applications. We have increased the number of incubation stalls to 15. 10 stalls have been taken up, and we are actually we have a list of applicants now that we are processing to lease out, or the other remaining incubation stalls. But this actually complements the entrepreneurship program and the place and train programs offered by the SEHC operators, because many of the operators also offer traineeship and entrepreneurship programs for new hawkers, and in fact they have actually been successful, relatively successful. Ci Yuan, for instance, they trained 16 aspiring hawkers, and 10 are still in Ci Yuan Hawker Center, and they have converted, to permanent hawkers, and are doing well. One of them just got married.
Mr. Liang Yinghua.
Thank you, sir. Well, while I can appreciate the merits of the social enterprise model, and indeed we should continue to evolve the model, I want to ask the Minister of SMS whether is social enterprise model the only way to go for new hawker centers? Is NEA open to other models as well, such as, for example, MCST type, where perhaps the hawkers can come together to self-manage, or for NEA to still run the new hawker centers at least for a while, and then transiting it to non-NEA run model?
I think we are open to any model as long as it's able to achieve the social objectives that we have set up for our new hawker centers, which is about providing affordable food options, moderating prices of food prices, right, ensuring that hawkers make a decent living, and building communities. So clearly we are open, but I think we need to note also that whatever model that we may adopt, I think there will always be challenges, even as there may be benefits, and therefore whatever model we adopt, we will need to give it time to settle down. And our SEHC model is a good example. We implemented it only about 3 years ago. In fact, the last one, Pasir Ris Hawker Center, was just opened this year. So it's really in its infancy. It's still evolving, and we always had the intention that we will continue to monitor, evaluate, and refine and improve the model. But having said that, SEHC at the present moment have actually resulted in many positive outcomes for both patrons as well as hawkers, and we don't want to undo those achievements, and therefore we'll see how we can better calibrate and make adjustments to the model. But as I've said, I think we are open to any model, because the idea really is to benefit patrons, to benefit Singaporeans, to benefit hawkers.
We are 1 hour into this topic. I'm going to ask Associate Professor Walter, then Kantiampo, and then Melvin Yong.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you, and I thank the Minister and SMS for their patience in addressing our questions. My question is, If hawkers are self-employed, then how can they be compelled by social enterprises or by the government to work certain hours or to meet other conditions of work? The problem seems to be that we are expecting the hawkers to bear some of the burdens of being an employee, but without the benefits of a guaranteed and stable income, for example.
Well, first of all, let me say that we have actually worked with the operators. So now one of the key changes we have made to the contract is that they do not need to open more than 5 days. Right? They're only required to open 5 days, 8 hours a day. The hawkers are small businesses, entrepreneurs. They enter into an agreement with the operators to operate the hawker store, subject, of course, to various conditions that they are agreeable to, and these are some of the conditions. The reason why you need to implement some minimum operating hours as well as minimum number of days really is because we want to make sure that the hawker centres are able to provide at least three meals, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. That means through the day and throughout the week, in order to ensure the vibrancy of the hawker centres. The hawker centres are built to serve the community, and one of the needs of the communities, like I say, especially in newer housing estates, is to have access to these food options for the 3 key meals. And if you do not agree to such operating hours, then it will come back to the same thing, that in some existing hawker centres, when you go there, it's closed, or it's only open half a day, so it doesn't serve the needs of the community. So we're not compelling them, they actually enter into it voluntarily and knowingly. Yeah.
Mr. Gantempo.
As I think my questions, I think I haven't got answered. There is a cost structure between those subsidized and non-subsidized stock. One is run by NEA, one by the new model. I just want to know what are the operating costs, what are the similar one, and what are not the subsidized one. Thank you.
First, let me explain that both our existing hawker centres and our new centres, for both of them, the construction costs of the hawker centres as well as the cost of upgrading and maintaining the hawker centres are not recovered through the rentals. So there is already an implicit government subsidy for both. The cost structure for both existing and hawker centres, existing centres, non-subsidized stores, and new centres really is quite similar. Earlier on in my reply, I already gave you a comparison in terms of rentals, that basically they are quite comparable and in line, taking into account, the differences in age, store size, and so on of the hawker centres. And then in terms of operating costs, it is also quite similar, and I've also given you a comparison. There will be costs in terms of service and conservancy charges, table cleaning. These are the key ones. Dishwashing. For dishwashing, what you see, for instance, when you compare, some people will say, how come the existing hawker centre is much lower? But that's because the cost element of dishwashing is often not taken into account in existing hawker centres, since existing hawker centres don't have CDW, most of them. But if you take that in, you have to employ somebody, say, for 1,500 just to wash dishes, or if the existing centre has a CDW system, then the essential costs are actually quite similar.
Mr. Melvinium.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I'd like to ask the SMS on hawker store rentals. I believe SMS said that the higher end of the hawker store rental range is around $13,000 at about $3 or $3.50 a plate. The hawker will need to sell at least 3,000 plates just to cover the rent. And if our hawker stores are to serve the objective of keeping our food prices affordable, will the ministry consider implementing a cap on the rental to better manage food prices? Even at half that rental of 5,000, you still have to sell at least 1,500 to 2,000 plates a day. Not a day, I mean a month, just to cover the rental.
Let me correct the member. I did not say that our hawker centres top-end rental is $13,000. The range of $4,000 to $13,000 is based on our survey, the rental for coffee shops and food court, not hawker centres. That's very important. What I said was that the rental of our hawker centres, new hawker centres, is nowhere near to where the rentals are for food court and coffee shops, which range based on our survey $4,000 to $13,000 net of operating costs. So the rentals for our new centres, median rental is about $2,000 net of operating costs. Yeah, and as I've said earlier, what we are asking is that to achieve our social objective of affordable food prices, as well as moderating food prices in the vicinity, at least one food option which is affordable. And most of these new centres have put that at about $3 or $2.80 one. Right? We're not asking them to sell everything at that low budget price. And therefore, they have a range of options. In fact, if you go to the hawker centres, there's a soup stall that I saw at Kampong Admiralty. It ranged from $2.80 up to $14 because it's premium, you know. Yeah, maybe got scallop and all that.
Engineer Dr. Lee, would you ask the next question? Next question, please. Question number 20.
One more supplementary question, please.
Okay, I'll allow one last supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. Just now, SMS mentioned that 50% of the surplus from the social enterprise must plow back to the hawker center or hawkers. I would like to find out what will happen to the remaining 50%. Does it go back to the company? Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, to the Melvin's, the member's question about rental cap, which I forgot to comment on. Our existing hawker centres, the non-subsidised stalls are actually let out by tender. So there is already a range of rentals indications. And in fact, we have removed the reserve rent. And therefore, even for our new hawker centres, when we evaluate the tenders, there are two things that we do. First, we get the professional valuers to assess what a reasonable market rent will be, and they actually make reference to the tendered rents of the existing hawker centres. And we also use that as a guide. So I think that we will continue to monitor rentals, ensure that they are fair and reasonable and, to our hawkers so that they can make a decent livelihood. With regard to the 50% surplus, let me say that so at least 50% must go back to social benefits. The other 50%, of course, they can keep. But so far, for our hawker centres, those that have already submitted their audited accounts, none of them have accumulated operating surplus. And it just goes to show, because it's only 1 to 3 years, yeah? And it just goes to show that just as hawkers, new hawker centres need time to build up, to establish themselves, so do the operators.